God abides. Chapter 14. Patty and I had been married for 4 years. We had 2 sons. We owned a house. I was active in my church. I had a good job, making good money for my family. When I could, in the hours between work and spending time with my kids, I did some ministry. On December 3rd, 2014, I came home from a dentist appointment. After walking through the door, I immediately started gathering the gear I needed to go ice fishing. The house was quiet. Caden, our oldest, was in school. Patty was with Noah, my younger son, running errands. I piled the equipment in the truck. I hurried to the bedroom to change clothes, then returned downstairs. I grabbed my boots from the closet and sat down. I felt fine. I was excited to get to the lake, but when I bent over to pull on my socks, it felt like something snapped. A searing pain tore through my chest, up my neck, and into my face. The pain fogged my thinking, but I tried to dismiss it. I decided I was experiencing a delayed reaction to Novocaine and figured it would quickly pass. I still wanted to get fishing. Another wave of pain crashed over me, and I knew I was in trouble. I wrestled my phone out of my pocket and dialed the 9 and the 1, but I stopped. I was alone and could barely move, but everyone knows tough guys don't call 911. For a few minutes, I tried to sit perfectly still. I kept expecting the pain to ease up, but if anything, it grew a little worse. I hovered my thumb over the last one. I didn't want to die from stubbornness. I leaned back in the chair and struggled to breathe. This was something serious. I finally acknowledged I needed help, but in the same moment, I remembered the front door was locked. For the first time, I felt real panic. If I called emergency services, EMTs would have to break my door. The effort nearly killed me, but I managed to stand up. With my knees wobbling underneath me, I forced myself towards the deadbolt. The first step was fine. I had it under control. The second was a little shaky. My body weighed 1,000 pounds more than it did that morning, but I didn't worry about it. At the third step, however, my legs gave out and I collapsed to the floor. Laying on the ground, I had to finally admit this wasn't just a reaction to the Novocaine. With an angry grunt, I hit the other one. Between gasping breaths, I explained my situation to the dispatcher. She told me that help was on the way. Satisfied, I hung up the phone and started crawling. I didn't know if I was going to live through the day, but I'd do everything in my power to make sure my front door would. It was the longest 10 feet I ever had to move, but I unlocked the deadbolt a few minutes before I heard the sirens. Knowing I had done all I could, I rested against the wall to wait. 20 minutes later, an EMT was smiling down at me. "Well, Dennis," she said, "you didn't have a heart attack." I nodded. The pain had eased back soon after they arrived. They had attached wires for an EKG, but hadn't moved me yet. "That's great. Then I'm going to go ice fishing." "Whoa," she said. "You may not have had a heart attack, but clearly something serious happened. You need to come to the hospital." I shook my head. "You don't understand. I need to get to the lake. They are biting. Here," I pulled out my phone. "You got to see some pictures of the fish I caught yesterday." "I'll take your word for it, but you have to get checked out by a doctor." "It was probably just gas." She leaned back on her heels and raised an eyebrow. "Let me ask you this. Why are you sitting on the floor?" I hesitated. I knew it was a trap and tried to think around it, but finally I told the truth. I guess my legs gave out. "Dennis, you need to go to the hospital and get this checked out." Still I hesitated. I argued with the EMT, downplaying what happened until Patty and Noah came home. At that point, I decided to go to the hospital because my wife gave me no other choice. It turned out to be the right call. My blood pressure plummeted in the ambulance. At the hospital, they rushed me in for a CT scan. Soon after, a doctor hurried to my bed. "Dennis, we need to get you to the University of Minnesota." His voice was deadly serious, and the look on his face was grim. "Doc, give it to me straight. What am I looking at?" "The main artery out of your heart has split in your abdomen. It's called an aortic dissection, and you need immediate emergency surgery," he said. It's serious, but if you can make it to the university hospital, you'll have a fighting chance. He said I had a chance, but his body language told me I was already dead. The helicopter wasn't available, so they raced me over in the ambulance. I stared out at the blue December sky as we rolled down the highway. The EMT guy sat quietly, not saying much. I figured they were waiting for me to die. I started talking to God. Dear Jesus, I said, this is your plan. This is your deal, and I accept it. If you want me to come home, let's go. I thought of Patty and my children. I'll have some questions, but I trust your word. You said you watch over the widows and the orphans, and I'll hold you to your word. I took a deep breath. But if you want me to stay, I will stay, and I'll serve you however I can. A few minutes later, we arrived at the university hospital. A team surrounded me before I was off the ambulance. The surgeon seemed surprised to find me alive. Two orderlies pushed my gurney almost at full run towards an operating room. The surgeon jogged alongside. If I have to replace your valve, what kind do you want? I had no idea how to answer. I wanted to say, how about you put in one that works, Doc? But after a few seconds of thought, I said, if I were your brother, what kind would you use? Synthetic. There you go. They prepped me for surgery. I had very little time before they put me under, but in those few minutes, I was able to see Patty and my brother-in-law, Matt. Somehow, they had beat the ambulance coming from Apple Valley. First of all, next time they should let me drive. Second, when Patty walked into my hospital room, she was surprised to find me at peace. She'd later say it was like I was glowing. My aorta had split. They were about to open my chest, stop my heart for a surgery which would last 14 hours. But facing this, I had leaned into the light of Christ. I had totally accepted God's plan, whatever it was going to be. The surgery was a success, but it left me in a coma for 5 days. After I finally woke up, I still faced a long road of recovery. I spent the next couple of months in and out of the hospital undergoing all kinds of procedures. For a long time, almost every visiting surgeon or doctor would duck into my room looking defeated, like they were dragging a 100-pound weight behind them. They clearly didn't expect me to make it. But Jesus walked with me and my family with every step. I had some bad days, but I was always calm, knowing God's got me and the people I love. The peace of Christ is an amazing thing. No matter where I was, no matter the chaos going on around me, I could feel it inside of me. And it radiated out. His peace touched nurses, doctors, family, friends, absolutely everyone who came to visit.